Welcome to Perfectville, your first place podcast for your Miami Dolphins, powered by FanDuel, part of the BLEAV network. I am Sam Marcoux, and he is the two-time Hall of Famer. Of course, I'm talking about the good doctor himself, Dr. Christopher Cullen. Doctor, how in the hell are you, my friend?
Doing great for a Monday. We got preseason football starting. We had the Hall of Fame game, Sam. And if you're anything like me, I was super excited for it all week and then watched like a quarter of it and turned it off. But hey, football's back. I'm excited. We play this weekend. I'm going to have family over. Football's here, man.
I watched exactly one play of the NFL Hall of Fame game, and that's when I was sitting at Coconuts in Fort Lauderdale ordering coconut shrimp, and I happened to look up and go, oh, yeah, football. So I'm ready for football, but I'm ready for Dolphins football here, Chris, and I'm ready, if you missed it at the top during the opening there, the big news, the breaking news for the Miami Dolphins, well, really for us here in the town of Perfectville and all of BLEAV, is that we have a new title sponsor, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, FanDuel. If you want to gamble, you want to gamble with the best, and that is, of course, FanDuel here, Chris. So you knew it, I knew it. We had to keep it under wraps until August, but FanDuel, the new title sponsor for the entire season here in the town of Perfectville. I am excited and stoked to be joined with them. They're giving us all kinds of fun stuff, including money, ladies and gentlemen. What do you think about FanDuel moving into the town of Perfectville here, Chris?
Dude, it's awesome. It's like the top betting platform there is. We've known them for absolute years. Been one of the top names. They got big time stars doing commercials for them, and now like we're a little part of that. Like that's pretty fucking cool, dude.
It's pretty fucking cool, and this show is going to be pretty fucking cool because we're going to get into it. We're going to get into the over-under powered by FanDuel, the over-under game. We're going to talk about the big splash, the big news, of course, Zach Sieler signing Miami Dolphin for life. Yet another white guy named Zach who's going to go down as a legend here with the Miami Dolphins. Of course, we got a really, really fun guest. Cooterdoodle from FantasyLife.com is going to be joining us, talking all things Miami Dolphins, and maybe a couple other surprises in there as well. We're going to get into it here, Chris. So let's get into the big splash. Let's get into it. It's time for the big splash, ladies and gentlemen. The one story making the biggest waves in Dolphins Nations this week, whether it's a highlight reel play, a sideline spat, or just something that's got Twitter in full meltdown mode. We're diving in head first, no floaties. Zach Sieler, our long national nightmare is over. Ladies and gentlemen, Zach Sieler, defensive tackle, random white, 92. For your Miami Dolphins, signs an extension. He is now under contract for 5 years. I think he's got over $40 million guaranteed, $60 million total. The big man stays home. He's fixing the trailer. He's putting some blocks down. Zach Sieler, Miami Dolphin for life.
He can lay the concrete foundation on his RV down and stick it to the ground because he's not going anywhere. Brother, I got to take credit for this, and I'm going to. I've been hyping up motherfucking Zach Sieler for years, to the point where you mentioned he is known as an inside joke with our podcast as Random White 92, because with Christian Wilkins on our team, the loudmouth, big time guy, he was the workhorse. And I just saw how just important he was to our team. Yeah. And during the podcast, like I do sometimes, I couldn't remember his name, but I saw stuff that was standing out that wasn't on the stat sheet, taking on double teams and filling holes and taking on fullbacks and pressuring quarterbacks. And I just like got caught up and said, man, that fucking Random White 92, like who is, and now here he is getting paid. His story's incredible. A walk-on at a D2 school.
Ferris State University.
Yeah. Dude, walk on, undrafted free agent or like late round pick, cut twice by the Ravens in the same goddamn year. We sign him, give him a damn chance. And he is I want to meet this guy like so bad. Just my son's name is Zach. It's a great name. Yep. But you root for guys like that, like homegrown, like come in, grind their ass off, have nothing handed to them. You're seeing these high school kids now getting Lamborghinis, when they sign with a school, millions of dollars. You want to talk about walking on a D2 school? Like he wasn't even good enough, and I'm using air quotes here, to get a scholarship or some money for a D2 school, and now he's getting $40 million guaranteed in the NFL. Like fucking kudos, Random White, Mr. Zach Sieler. Your name deserves to be said. And I, for one, as a football fan, a Dolphins fan, am proud you're on my team and proud of you and happy for your family because you fucking earned it, man.
No, he absolutely did. And Random White, as you coined him, I mean, it was a tribute to Reggie White. That's how good he was flashing early in his career. Reggie White, Random White, 92, same. And did you see him at the press conference today, Chris? He shows up in a cowboy hat, an aquamarine official color for the Miami Dolphins cowboy hat. And he brought I believe his son on stage with him. And then he talked about how he wanted his story to be shared with everyone, and that everyone, whether you were, a Division I, collegiate standout or a walk-on at a D2 school, that can relate to his story of hard work, perseverance, being a good teammate. This is a guy who wanted a new contract, and he showed up and he practiced hard. I saw it with my two eyes last week at training camp. This guy didn't sit out. He didn't sit in. He didn't complain. He very much went about his business. He kept in contact with the coaches in the front office and said, I'm going to come to work every single day, but this is what I'm expecting. And you know what? That's a guy you reward. That's a guy you keep in-house. The Miami Dolphins, Chris Greer, Mike McDaniel, Zach Sieler, they got it right. Congratulations to everybody involved. $40 million to Zach Sieler, guaranteed. And again, for the next 5 years at least, Miami Dolphin. I love it.
Dude, what a fucking pro. I'm glad you brought that up because that's something I thought about. It's like you're looking at these guys that are holding in, that are holding out, that are refusing to show up. He not only is out there, and Sam, you know this for personally because you're there in person, how fucking hot and humid it is out there.
Yes.
And he's in pads. He's working his ass off, even though he wants a contract, doing it all the right way and proving it could be done. I'm really proud of the Dolphins as an organization too for getting it right. Because like this guy is just a stalwart of our defensive line, and it starts up front. And having him back for the next foreseeable future makes me happy about our future.
Yeah, I me too. I mean, he's a guy that you root for in the team, whether you're, 4 wins, 14 wins, that's a guy you want on your team. He makes you better regardless. So speaking of better, I'm going to talk about training camp a little bit. One thing I need to correct you on, Chris, you had mentioned to me that those big ass fans at training camp would not make a difference. I have to disagree with you. Those big ass fans were the best thing about training camp in my experience last week. I showed up. It's hot. It's humid. It's like a heat index of 107 when you figure in the humidity along with the heat. I sit down with my family. I'm texting Travis Wingfield. I'm looking at Omar Kelly. I'm flipping him off. I'm seeing Alan Pupar and everybody else, all the beat writers sitting in their little corner, their little clique up in the upper right-hand corner of the bleachers, writing their notes and everything. And it's hot. It's humid. But I felt fine. And I know I felt fine because I wasn't sweating for the only time for a week that I was in South Florida and the Bahamas. I walked out of there afterwards to get some autographs, which, by the way, shout out to Patrick Paul, who signed my daughter's hat. And it was hot as hell. And I was ready to die after about 5 minutes of just standing in the sun. So, Chris, I wanted to believe you. I thought you were correct. My experience in South Florida is that fans don't really matter. They mattered here. So kudos to the Miami Dolphins. Kudos to whoever made the decision to put those big ass fans in those bleachers. It absolutely 100% made a difference for me and my family and everyone else that was sitting there watching practice that day. If only it had stopped Ashton Davis from getting hurt, that would have been a good thing. That was the only negative of the day for me, Chris, was Ashton Davis going down, one of our starting centers. Safety, excuse me. Went down, looked like a non-contact to me. I didn't really see it clearly. I was watching the ball instead of the player. But about 5-10 minutes of sitting there, people talking to him. He walks off to training, comes back with a boot. Wasn't exactly fun to see that. And that's one of the things about the Miami Dolphins, the injuries, Chris. Ashton Davis goes down. You have Austin Jackson, our right tackle, who's protecting to his blind side. He's going to be out for weeks at this point. You've got Alec Ingold down for about 10 minutes with a head injury. He is now in concussion protocol. So the injuries are not just hitting the back end of the roster, but contributors as well, starters in some cases. What do you make of the Miami Dolphins limping into preseason game number 1 against the Chicago Bears with some of their contributors not being able to contribute?
Yeah, that's the toughest thing is, Bill Parcells said the best ability is availability. I want to say, hey, at least we're getting these out of the way now, and they're not like, knock on wood, season enders, but the injuries have just seemed to be a lot. And yeah. I've, been messaging friends, other Dolphins fans, and it's every time one of us send a screenshot of a headline of somebody injured, we're like, Jesus Christ, just end preseason. Like, just tell the guys to lift and show up for week 1 against the Colts, because like this is just getting brutal. But I think it also is it's a point to Chris Greer not having enough depth at the DB position, that we're sitting here and Davis goes down and we're sitting there like, okay, we got Minka, but who the hell else is going to play safety? I mean, we're talking about possibly Bonner and Storm Duck starting at corner for us. I mean, that looks like the fourth quarter of a preseason game. Like we'll see how it looks and what happens. But man, it's tough. It's a tough sport. It's hot. Everybody's got injuries, but the teams that are going to make it at the end have the depth to get through it.
You see Mike McDaniel and his comments about Cam Smith. I think it was today, maybe yesterday, where they're looking forward to the day that he can make himself available consistently or something along those lines. It was very much like side eye. We're done with this guy. The Miami Dolphins have a depth issue. They have a starting issue when it comes to their cornerbacks. I watched them specifically. They looked pretty good in, they were in pads when I was there. It was the first day of pads. They looked pretty good, but I mean, there was just lack of concentration even in the team, the squad drills. I mean, where they're backpedaling, they're going left, they're going right, and they got to catch the ball and run forward. There was a couple of them where even Jack Jones, like, he just missed it. He just missed the ball. Like, he just wasn't focusing and catching the ball. He wasn't doing the fundamental things right. So I think they got a problem on the back end, which is all the more reason why I need Zach Sieler, all the more reason why Kenneth Grant flashing the way he did when pads came on at the defensive tackle position is huge for the Miami Dolphins. You need Jalen Phillips. Chop Robinson looked amazing, by the way. Chop Robinson, the only critique I had was every single song that he picked, because the day I was there, he was wearing the orange jersey, was pretty much the same exact song. And I know I sound like an old man when I say that, but I could not discern one from the other. So maybe a little more diversity when it comes to the playlist. I'm not even saying outside of rap and hip hop there, Chop. Just get a different artist. It was like the same guy over and over and over again.
How did Willie Gay look? He's getting a lot of love.
Willie Gay looks good. I mean, everything that everyone's saying is absolutely correct. I mean, I looked at a few players. Patrick Paul was dominant the day that I was there. I mean, he was dominant, and he came out and he signed everybody's hats and footballs and everything else. And,
how big is he in person?
He's massive. He's freaking huge. He's 6'7". He's 330 pounds, and there's not an ounce of fat on the guy. I mean, it's just that looks like a good pick. Chop Robinson and Patrick Paul. That looks like a good draft, combo from Chris Greer. I know it's early.
And yet another player where his last and first name can be
Paul Patrick Paul. There you go. Robinson, Chop Robinson. That sort of works in a way.
Yeah.
But you talked about preseason coming up. We got a game here on Sunday, 1 p.m. Eastern at Chicago against the Bears. I took a look on FanDuel here, Chris. FanDuel at the Miami Dolphins as underdogs here. Preseason game week 1 plus 2.5 against the Chicago Bears. I'm offended by this, Chris. I love FanDuel, but I'm offended by us being underdogs, even if our starters don't play against the lousy Chicago Bears. I don't know if you've been watching the Chicago Bears, but their training camp has not gone well. Caleb does not look good. Yet somehow
throwing against the net and missed every square and turned around and had a fucking hissy fit.
Yeah, I mean, Caleb is missing. He missed 4 or 5 in a row. If you watch that video clip, it looked like he got intercepted by the air. I mean, he's not having a good camp. Yet the Miami Dolphins are looking like they're going to lose, according to FanDuel, by a couple of points here. Do you think the Miami Dolphins pull this out? Do you think they cover here at the plus 2.5 against the Chicago Bears, or do you care?
you know me way too much, Sam. You just saw my facial expression and knew I was going to say, who gives a shit? Like, it's preseason. I want to see Quinn Ewer spin it. I want to see him go out and ball out. I want to see Ollie Gordon go out and get some carries. I'm excited for the young guys to see that. Kamara at defensive end from Colorado State a couple of years ago. This is what we live for when we watch these preseason games, to see who steps up in the moment and earns a roster spot. That's what's fun for me. If we win, I couldn't care less.
I hope we're down by 3 with like a minute left, and Quinn Ewers just bombs it out to like Malik Washington, and they score a touchdown with time running out, and we win. That would be good. Like, we win and we cover. Like, that's what I want. I want both of those things to happen. But yeah, I mean,
Bears
check it out on
fans
FanDuel.
just throwing their hats for a preseason game they lost their fucking monthly paycheck on.
I had a buddy who shall remain nameless who texted me the day after the Hall of Fame game, and he goes, "I won so much money on the Chargers last night." I'm like, "Did you bet on the Hall of Fame game?" Like, I can't believe you did that.
Fucking degenerate, Jesus.
Yeah, I know. And then he goes, "Oh, you got to check out the line on FanDuel," and I did. And I was like, "Well, I mean, at least you picked the right line. I mean, at least you did well there." So, if you do want to bet, if you do want to take a look for funsies, if nothing else, FanDuel's got you covered. They got the Dolphins plus 2.5 against the Bears. Preseason game 1 which is going to be Sunday, August 10th. All right. I think we beat this horse to death here with Zach Sieler. Let's get into the over-under game here, powered by FanDuel, and then we're going to talk to Cooterdoodle, and we're just going to do the damn thing here, Chris. Are you ready for the over-under game?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes. I am ready. You're ready. We're born ready. Bucky's hat on. He's got his thinking cap on, ladies and gentlemen. And we're talking futures here. So I went on FanDuel, just like we talked about, and I looked at what they have for the Miami Dolphins and the individual players for the season. So we're looking at season totals here, and I'm going to focus on the offense here. So I'm going to give you the number, I'm going to give you the player, and these are season totals that the line has been set on FanDuel, and you tell me over, under. Let's start with my personal favorite player on the Miami Dolphins, Jalen Waddle, number 17. FanDuel has him at 925.5 receiving yards on the season, over, under 925.5 receiving yards for Jalen Waddle in the 2025 season.
This is a tough one. When you sent this to me, I immediately said over, and then I went, well, it's, Tyreek might get running. Like, who knows? He's been injured in the past. But you know what? I'm thinking Waddle's having a really good year this year. I'm going to go over on this.
I'm going over as well. I think if nothing else, Jalen Waddle is going to separate himself from that kind of, wide receiver 2-pack. This guy's a wide receiver 1 who just happens to have Tyreek Hill in front of him. I think Jalen Waddle, by the end of this season, my prediction is that Jalen Waddle will be the number 1 receiver for the Miami Dolphins, one way or the other. I think you slam the over 925.5 receiving yards for Jalen Waddle, as long as he stays healthy. There's the caveat. I think that's an easy overplay. Check it out on FanDuel. All right, Tua Tagovailoa, over under 3,500.5 passing yards for Tua Tagovailoa in 2025. What do you say, Chris? Over, under 3,500.
Man, Tua is just up and down in his career. Injured, not injured, so he takes off. Off year last year, I think he comes back. I really honestly think this is a year for Mike McDaniel and Tua, where if it's not like a playoff victory or two, they're looking into replacing both. Not saying they're on the hot seat per se, but it's just going to take a really good season to keep things par for the course. So I'm going to say over here. If Waddle's going to be over 1,000-ish, I think Tua spreading it around. I think our offensive line is going to protect him. I think our run game is going to be important for Mike McDaniel to get that established, that create separation for receivers, to create time for Tua to throw the ball. And we got to lean into that, and he's going to take advantage of it for some chunk plays.
So I'm going to go under. I'm going to disagree with you here. And not because I think Tua is going to have a bad season, not because I think he's going to be injured, although history tells us he's probably going to miss a couple of games, whether it's concussion related or otherwise, but because of what you just said. I think the Mike McDaniel offense in 2025 is going to be heavily focused on establishing the run. You look at what they did in terms of quote unquote fixing the offensive line. You look at what they've done in training camp with Patrick Paul, with those interior linemen there. They look really good. I'm watching Alexander Madison rip off 65-yard runs. I'm watching Devon Achane rip off 25 chunk yards time and time again. It looks like the Miami Dolphins are going to get back to where they were 2 years ago, where the run game set up the pass and the pass game set up the run, much more so than what we saw last year, which was desperation. And we had to use that short passing game with Jonnu Smith and Devon Achane to supplement a really piss poor running game. So I think Tua's numbers are going to take a hit a little bit, simply because I think our running back room and our running backs in particular are going to have a much bigger year than they had last year. So I'm taking the under simply because of that. You take the over. I got no problem with the over there. Now that leads me into Devon Achane. FanDuel has him at 875.5 yards, over under 875 for Devon Achane for the 2025 season.
I'm going to say under, just because I think Jalen Wright's going to get some carries as well as Ollie Gordon, and there's going to be games where we're behind and we're going to have to throw the ball. I don't think he has a bad season. I think he goes over 1,000 all-purpose for sure.
Yes.
But as far as high eights, I'm going to say under on that.
I tend to agree with you, but just to be the contrarian, I'm going to go slightly over. I think he gets 900 yards rushing, because I do think this running back room is going to be a little bit more of a committee this year. They're not going to rely as heavily on Achane as they did last year, but I do think he's the best weapon in that room. And I do think he's going to get the bulk of the carries, and I do think he's going to get a lot of balls passed to him still, not as much as last year, but he's still going to be that weapon out of the backfield, which will hurt his rushing numbers.
Correct.
But I agree with you. I think he goes over 1,000. I think he goes over 1,100 all-purpose yards,
Me
or at
too.
least out of the backfield. I think he's going to get a lot of touchdowns. I'm very, very bullish when it comes to Devon Achane. I think he's going to get slightly over that 875. I think we're looking at maybe 915 for Devon Achane, but I can understand the under there. I'm just going to put myself on the other side of the fence. That way we got something to talk about at the end of the season there, Chris. All right, now let's get to the man of the hour, too sweet to be sour, the man who wanted out in January and is now learning the offense finally after 3 years here, Tyreek Hill. FanDuel has him at 975.5 yards. Over under Tyreek Hill getting 975 on the season there, Chris.
I'm going to take the under here, and by a lot. I don't even know if Tyreek Hill finishes the season on Miami Dolphin. So that's a tough bet there. The water's already murky. There's a lot of shit in it. I love Tyreek. I hope he stays and balls out for us. Little something tidbit I heard today. Our friend from our previous life on the fins.com and Fin Heaven forum, Jason Jennings, lives in Mechanicsville, Virginia. He's listening to sports radio. There's rumors.
Yes.
We've been in contact with the Commanders for Terry McLaurin and a second or third for Tyreek Hill. So I don't know how legitimately valid that is at all, but if that's even being discussed, if teams are reaching out, we think the juice isn't worth the squeeze anymore. I definitely not in early August, going to take the over on almost 1,000 yards for Tyreek Hill.
I've heard that same rumor, and imagine Tyreek Hill and Deebo Samuel together with that young second-year quarterback there in Washington, and we play them in Madrid, Spain later this year. That would be one hell of a storyline. I'm going to go the under as well. Not because I think he's going to be traded, although I think there is a possibility there. I do think Jalen Waddle, it's just his time. I think you're going to see a reversal here, kind of like Hulk Hogan and The Rock when they switched at that WrestleMania. You're going to see Jalen Waddle just springboard ahead and waddle past the cheetah as wide receiver 1 for the Miami Dolphins. I'm just telling you, my gut tells me Jalen Waddle is the guy this year. And Tyreek Hill is going to be a little bit more of a support player, and I think he will be okay with that. I think he's humbled a little bit based on everything that I'm hearing from Mike McDaniel, Tua Tagovailoa, and Tyreek Hill himself. I do think he's focused, and when he's focused like he was 2 years ago, we were flirting with 2,000 yards. I think, again, just based on how the offense is going to go, we don't have the tight end threat that we had with Jonnu Smith last year. People are going to focus in on Tyreek Hill and force the Miami Dolphins to beat them at the running back position. I think the Miami Dolphins can counterpunch with that. But I think Jalen Waddle gets a lot of targets because of everything Tyreek Hill has been in the past and the threat he continues to be. He's not going to be a decoy, but he's not going to be the Tyreek Hill of 2 years ago. I think he's probably somewhere in between last year in terms of stats and the year before, but a better version of himself than last year, if that makes any sense. I think the stats will suffer, but he's going to be a better player for the Miami Dolphins.
Sure, I'll take that.
All right, and last but not least, number 5 here. Let's talk about the Miami Dolphins in general. I took a look on FanDuel here, Chris, and it looks like FanDuel is hedging their bet that the Miami Dolphins will have 8.5 wins in the 2025 season. Over under 8.5 for the Miami Dolphins in 2025, given everything we've seen, everything we've experienced, everything we've talked about. Are the Miami Dolphins going to do better than last year, or will they do the same or worse than a year ago?
I don't think I've ever in early August while doing the show has not been optimistic. And that's not changing. I'm taking over on this. We're going to win 11, 12 games, maybe 10, 11, 12 is a sweet spot. We're sick of it. We know that we have had late season peril, and it's time to fix that. It's all about fixing the locker room, the mentality, the everything, and they're all bought in. It seems like they're all bought in. I just like the comments coming from some of the mid-level like veterans that are like, hey, we got players out of here that weren't buying in, that were cancer to the locker room, to Mike McDaniel's scheme and everything like that. So yes, we maybe didn't get better with the players we let go, but I don't think we're going to lose less games by swapping Minkah Fitzpatrick with Jalen Ramsey and getting rid of Jonnu Smith in his 30s. Like, I think we're going to be better, and I'm going to take the over.
You're taking the over based on FanDuel, looking at the Miami Dolphins at 8.5 wins here in 2025. I'm going to take the over as well. And in fact, if you're like Chris and you're like myself and you want to pull odds for, I don't know, 10 wins, 11 wins, 12 wins for the Miami Dolphins, you can do all of that on FanDuel and more. Check it out, FanDuel.com. Check out all those futures. Check out the individual props. Check out all things Miami Dolphins. You can check out the line for preseason game 1, 2, and 3 as well, Chris. for the Miami Dolphins against the Indianapolis Colts week 1. We'll talk all about that. And of course, look at the lines on FanDuel as we get later into preseason, of course, regular season. But there it is, ladies and gentlemen, the over-under game. Jalen Waddle, 925.5. Devon Achane, 875.5. Tua Tagovailoa, 3,500.5. Tyreek Hill, 975.5. And of course, the Miami Dolphins, 8.5 wins, over-under. What say you? Are we going over or under on each of those? Of course, we'll clock it and take a look throughout the season and see where we're at and see how smart Chris is and how dumb Sam is, or vice versa. All right, with that, we've got a special guest coming up here. So right after these words, we're going to talk to Cooterdoodle. Speaking of Tyreek Hill, she just wrote an article for FantasyLife.com. That's Matthew Berry's site, about if Tyreek Hill is tanking his fantasy stock, and she points to a bunch of, shall we say, curious decisions by Tyreek Hill and the Miami Dolphins that have happened over the last couple of weeks and months that lead her to believe that maybe Tyreek Hill is not the wide receiver 1 in fantasy football that he used to be. So stick around. Right after these words, we're going to talk to Cooterdoodle. We're going to have some fun. All right. Well, welcome back, everybody. The town of Perfectville, Sam Marcoux, Chris Cullen on the BLEAV Network, powered by FanDuel. And I hope you enjoyed those ads, ladies and gentlemen. We curated those ads just for you. And I think you should purchase every single good and service that was just dropped into your ears in front of your eyeballs. But in front of your ears, in front of your eyeballs right now, we have a special guest, Chris Cullen, and it's not you this time. It is the staff writer for Fantasy Life, Matthew Berry's FantasyLife.com. Do we call you Miss Doodle? Do we call you Cooter? It's Cooterdoodle, ladies and gentlemen, the guru of all things fantasy football. She's going to walk us through all things Miami Dolphins. Cooter, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to be here.
We're glad that you are here. Now, full disclosure here, I really wanted you on the show because reading your articles and seeing some of the different appearances that you have been on, you seem to understand, you seem to get it when it comes to football, when it comes to fantasy football. I think you're going to vibe very well with how Chris and I guess, just envision football and what it's supposed to be. But I would be remiss if people are listening to this. You're missing out right now. Cooterdoodle has an actual, like, she's like proportioned. Her head is proportioned in the screen. Chris Cullen, who is larger than I am. He's taller than I am. He's a bigger guy. He played football in college. I did not. His head in real life is bigger than mine. I have seen it. He tackled me on the football field, but it looks small. Why is my head so big? Am I too close to the camera, Chris? What's going on here?
Yeah, you can blame it on camera optics and things like that, but we all know maybe you're on what was that steroid stuff, that
Prednisone?
Yeah, maybe you're taking that. I know you had COVID. Almost
I did have
the
COVID.
Listeners over the microphone. So
I was like the last person on earth to get COVID like 2 weeks ago, and
you and
I
Barry
don't remember.
Bonds heads growing.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Did you win some championships? That might be what it is.
So you know what it is? My head is a little big. I did win a couple of I won a golf championship, a golf tournament about 2 weeks ago with a lot of people from my fantasy league here in Northern California, the League of Ordinary Gentlemen. So perhaps that's what it is. I'm just a little bit overinflated self.
Well, look, I don't want to brag, but I got a hole-in-one in 2012 and no one's talking about it. I don't know if you can see that right there. So
you all right. Okay. We're going to pause the Tyreek Hill. We're going to pause everything else. I have never had a hole-in-one. Chris, have you ever had a hole-in-one in golf?
In disc golf.
Okay, regular golf.
That's still impressive.
It is kind of impressive.
There's a bouncer on a dog leg left. It was awesome.
You're speaking the lingo. So walk me through this. I'm assuming a par 3.
Oh yeah, par 3, ladies' tees. You know how it goes. Yes. They had water right before the green, and I had been doing terribly that day. So when I swung it, my husband was like, "Oh, nice shot," and I thought it was sarcasm. So I turned around, and he had to physically he's like, "Look," and I barely saw it right before it dropped in.
Wow. So was it like a bounce and roll or bounce, bloop? How did it?
Long roll, just
long
beautiful.
Roll.
Yep.
I feel like that's cooler because you anticipate it. It's like you're watching. It could break, it could curve, it could hit a leaf, and there it goes. It disappears.
Yeah, so the closest I ever got to a hole-in-one was probably around 2012, not too long, right around the time you got yours. But it was a bad shot. I shanked it, and it bounced off of a rock, and then did a big caroon, like a big St. Louis arch, bounce, and I'm looking at that, and I just got paired with a random, and he's like, "That doesn't count if it goes down." It absolutely fucking counts.
Sure does.
And it looped out, it just lipped out and sat about 8 inches outside of the cup, and then I had the pressure of sinking the birdie putt, which I did, but I almost got an accidental hole-in-one. That's the closest and probably the closest I'll ever get to it.
That would have been great.
You see, John Rahm hit a guy in the head, and it bounced John Rahm hit a fan in the head and it bounced onto the green. And I was like, that's some Happy Gilmore stuff right there.
That is some Happy Gilmore. Did you see Happy Gilmore 2, by the way, Chris? You see that one?
Yeah, I thought it was great. Nostalgic.
Yeah, I did too. Cooter, did you watch Happy Gilmore 2?
I caught the beginning, and I'll be honest, I walked away. I didn't finish it.
I think can I ask how old you are by chance?
I am 36.
36. So she's just outside of the
I know
Addams
the
Family
original.
style.
No, I know the original.
I'm 38 and I grew up watching Happy Gilmore.
Yeah.
I honestly thought you were 48, Chris. I apologize. Okay, well, look, let's get off golf. Let's get off hockey. Let's get off movies. Although we might come back to that because I want to hear your opinion, Cooter, on the best fantasy football teams out there. I was reading that article, but the first thing I want to talk about is the article that I think you put up today over at FantasyLife.com. Essentially talking about is Tyreek Hill tanking his fantasy stock, and that was very intriguing to me. In fact, I put it out on X Twitter and said everyone should read this right now because I have a theory. My theory is that Jalen Waddle will be wide receiver 1 by the end of this season, probably middle of the season when it comes to the Miami Dolphins for a bunch of different reasons. But you went through a bunch of different examples as to why Tyreek Hill may be having his stock plummet in fantasy. Could you walk us through that article for those who have not read it quite yet?
Yeah. I mean, like if anybody is a Dolphins fan, you know the drama that started around January last year where they weren't doing so hot. He didn't make 1,000 yards for the first time, I think, since 2019. Was at 8 and 9. And so he said, I have to do what's right for my family. And that whole saga that we know how it unfolded. Well, now lately in the last week or so, he's talking, in my opinion, kind of backhandedly on the wide receiver coach, Robert Prince, saying that him and Waddle, that he's been getting on their nerves ever since he started there. And he kind of said it playfully in a press conference, but it's still a strange thing to say. And then he's saying that, he didn't really understand the offense since he's been around these last 3 years, which is, I don't believe. And then he also thinks, we should have Jalen Wright out there on third down. So I just feel like these backhanded, just little pinpricks of not supporting the teammates and the staff.
No, the thing about the wide receiver coach, I didn't know. That had actually missed my radar, Chris. I don't know if you'd heard about that, but that was something that actually raised my eyes a little bit. Like, wow, he's openly criticizing not only the wide receiver coach, but he did openly come out last week when I was at training camp and said, we got to stop putting Devon Achane out there on third down. And if you look at Mike McDaniel's clapback today, he seemed pretty annoyed at Tyreek Hill in terms of what he was saying and how he's critiquing Mike McDaniel's offense and his play design. I think you're onto something. I don't think everything is as rosy as we might think it is. And another piece of evidence that you talked about ad nauseum across all social media, across all Dolph fans everywhere, a couple of weeks ago when Tua Tagovailoa came out and basically said he still has to earn his trust back with this team and with him specifically. Now, we applauded Tua for saying that, Cooter, but one of the things that was odd to me was that was very open and honest. At least it seemed like it was. But then other teammates came out and said, no, he's a great teammate. And I don't know what to believe, but I tend to believe the quarterback, the guy who is the designated leader on the team, saying, no, you still got to earn it back. You can't just say that and say you're sorry and be back in the good graces. And I can tell you from somebody who's been at Dolphins training camp, who's watching this every single day, there's a lot more balls going to Jalen Waddle in camp than there is Tyreek Hill at this stage of the game. That's not to say Tyreek Hill is completely ignored, but Jalen Waddle seems to be the target for Tua Tagovailoa in training camp so far. So I think you're on to something. So from a fantasy standpoint, where does Tyreek Hill land on your list of wide receivers? Is he still top 10? Does he drop down into the top 20? Where does he fall based on the evidence that you're seeing and what you're hypothesizing?
Now, look, you're asking me, I read about the numbers. Dwayne McFarland and Ian Hartitz at Fantasy Life, they do the crunching. And when I'm thinking of drafting, I'm thinking of my home league, and I just don't want to get burned. So I'm personally not going to draft him this year if things continue down this path. That's just somebody I'll rather go out there and take somebody in that same tier. You know what I mean?
What's the Hill tier?
Oh gosh. I mean, if I'm looking at I want the Pukas, even though now people are starting to think that Stafford, what's going on there. I'd rather take my chances with Puka.
Even with Devontae Adams being added.
Yeah, I would personally. And look, that's not to say that Hill's not a good player, not to say that he won't go out there week one and have a great game and have a great season, but I just tend to steer clear. As a Saints fan, I'll give you this. As a Saints fan, do you remember the season last year with Dennis Allen and all the drama? And then we had the issues where Jameis Winston had given the ball to Jamal Williams to score against the Falcons one game whenever the coaches didn't want that to happen. There was so much turmoil, and I just am getting those vibes, and I don't want I don't want the turmoil. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Not for me.
Well, so you're supposed to come on the show and like tell us pretty fun things about the Dolphins, not make us feel like we're about to have a Saints 2024 season ahead of us.
No, you won't be that bad.
Well, we won't be that bad, Chris. See, we got that going for us. We won't be that bad.
You've got Waddle, you've got Jalen Wright.
There you go. So
yeah,
let me ask you this: who is the guy on the Miami Dolphins that if you're looking at and you have to pick a Miami Dolphin in whatever round you're in, and you're on the clock and everyone's available to you from the Miami Dolphins, who are you picking and why?
You know, after talking with you, I'm going to look at Jaden Waddle a lot more than I was before. And I'll probably go for the guys that are going later on. Like, why not go for a Jalen Wright where he's going, I think, 12th round? And they only drafted one guy, I think, right in the round 6, Ollie Gordon. They have Alexander Madison. So as far as, a backup, I like Jalen Wright as a swinger in round 12.
Yeah, are you big on like the handcuffs when it comes to running backs? Because that's something that in most of my leagues, I've never really gotten into that. I try to get just starter as much as I possibly can, but I see the strategy changing in my home league here, where most people are, backup running backs. Those handcuffs are almost as valuable as those starting running backs in many, many league formats. And Jalen Wright is absolutely going to be that for a Devon Achane, who, again, another guy in camp who looks brilliant, but has trouble staying on the field and probably shouldn't be on the field for all 3 downs. So Jalen Wright would be a guy, kind of a sleeper pick for you for the Miami Dolphins if you're drafting late, like you said, round 12, if you're in a traditional snake draft.
Oh, absolutely. And like you said, the home leagues of like a decade ago, 2 decades ago are not the same. Everybody's good, like sharks now. There's not people drafting 3 defenses and 2 kickers, and that pool of backup running backs goes quick,
Absolutely.
Outside of the Dolphins, I got a question for you. My wife got burned last year by taking Christian McCaffrey in the first overall.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's looking good in camp right now. Do you think? Have you seen in any mock drafts or predictions that he's going to actually fall out of like the top 5 in most leagues?
Gosh, you bring up a good point. I think the only people that are fading him are the ones that got burned last year. I think that's the ones that are like, not again. I took him in the Scott Fish Bowl, I think 109, which is a different kind of draft. But yeah, I like him this year.
So let's talk about different draft formats there, because I personally, our league for the fantasy football for the citizens of Perfectville, we call ourselves the okayest fantasy league ever, and I truly believe we are, because it is just a snake draft. It's not anything. We're spread out across the country. We don't really even know each other. I mean, they listen to the show, they interact with us, they're great, but it's just a normal snake draft. There's just really bragging rights. We have good, fun interactions throughout the season, but I am somewhat bored of a snake draft. So my home league, we're in an auction league and a keeper league. It's 2 of those. You can keep up to 5 players, and of course, extra $5 on your salary if you do keep them. We do have certain rules, like if you try to nominate a player for the auction and they're already kept by somebody, you have to take a shot. All these things that adults do, nice mature adults. What's your favorite type of fantasy football format in terms of league format?
You have my ears peaked and tingling because I love a keeper league. That is my bread and butter, because I've tried them all. I've tried the tight end premiums, the super flex, the IDPs. I'm in them. But when I'm talking about just pure happiness, I like the taste of redraft with the sprinkle of like, you got to plan for the future with those keepers. I've never done a 5 keeper. The most I've done is 2. 5 that's getting in territory where I'm probably a little more nervous. But
Alexander Madison is absolutely getting drafted by somebody in our league, because it is the depths of hell once you get to about like round 4 or 5, and you're like, there's a guy. And by the way, we're drafting that league. We're drafting Saturday, so we're drafting before any preseason games are happening. So you're kind of going in blind. So you might be drafting somebody who's cut 2 weeks later, and that's the worst. It's the absolute worst, but it's so much fun because you just don't know. So I personally love that league. Have you ever been in a vampire league? Have you ever done one of those types of leagues where you have like 12 teams? Chris, are you familiar with a vampire league, Chris?
Never heard of that in my life.
So let's say you have 12 teams and you draw straws or however you figure it out. But if you're the 12th team, you're the vampire, you don't get to draft. So the other 11 teams draft their entire roster, and then you just have to fill in your roster with anybody who's left over. Now, here's the kicker. If you beat anybody in the league at any point, you are allowed to take any of their players. There is nobody that is protected. So if you win early, if you win week 1, you win week 2, you start building an absolute juggernaut of a team. But you got to win early. Otherwise, you're just beat down and just out of it. But I have never done that for money, and I really, really want to do it because it just seems like so intriguing to me to be that vampire and see if you can build from scratch up to some sort of dynasty.
Only the vampire can steal people if they win?
Yes.
Like they're the only team?
Yes.
Oh, that's so exciting.
So they're not getting auto-drafted. They literally don't draft and just pluck the UDFAs.
Wow.
Exactly. So, and then you have to win, right? Like you might pull somebody like who's the backup running back for the Saints who was on the Lions a couple of years ago who just got like 17 touchdowns.
Yeah, Jamal Williams. Yeah.
Jamal Williams, right? So if you have him, all of a sudden you might win week 1, week 2, and all of a sudden you're in business because now you got a quarterback, you got a wide receiver, whatever the case may be.
Wow.
I got a quick question, if I could. I want you to clear something up for me because I run a league with my family, and my dad is in a million leagues. I mean, the joke of the family is like he is just in so many DFS and mocks and everything. That's like all he lives for. He has like 10 teams. I'm like, I don't even know how you manage that. But he said my actual league, my commission league, I dock points for interceptions and I dock points for missed kicks for kickers and quarterbacks. And he said that's sacrilegious. And I want to know your opinion on that. I think you should get punished for mistakes, but he has been burned a few times in my league. And I'm like, dude, you've got one job as a kicker. If you miss, I'm docking you points, and it's less if it's 50 or more, and more obviously if it's within 30 or so. But I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
I don't either. And I'm kind of also on the team of like, if you knew the rules when you joined, that's the rules.
Boom.
You know?
Yeah. Boom, Dad. Suck it. Cooter said, what's up?
Sorry, Lloyd. You're out.
Sorry, Dad.
Yeah. All right. So I got a couple questions from people in our league. So this comes from Lennon, who I think is a 2-time champion in our league. So I feel like this is cheating. But is it worse to reach too early or wait too long on pick selection?
Oh, way too long. I'll be the first to say it. At the end of the day, ADP is just this culmination of what people think. There isn't it's not perfect. So if there's a guy that you truly believe in, go out and be Sean Payton and reach for Bo Nix at 112, like he did in the NFL draft. And look how it turned out for him. Reach for your guys. If it's someone because I'm in the field of fantasy is about winning, no doubt about it, but it's also about fun. And if I'm not having a good time, why am I in this? You know what I mean? So I want the guys that I want.
Yeah, there's been plenty of times I got like a D in my draft grade and I won the league. So I mean, go out there and get your guy. I agree.
Speaking of Bo Nix, just a shout out to Cooterdoodle's recent article, the 165 best fantasy football names. I think unsolicited Knicks picks was one of them. Right. So
great.
Cooter, I got one for you. What's your go-to draft day ritual, and how much is rooted in superstition versus good vibes, or just plain old analytics? Do you have something that you do on draft day?
I have my cheat sheet. And I mark little dots of the people that I'm really into because I don't want my husband or anybody taking a peek, and I'll put teensy tiny dots. And then there's the people that I want to avoid. But at the end of the day, and I think I just wrote about this in something that comes out tomorrow, but I don't prescribe to this is what I'm doing on the day and I'm not pivoting. You have to be flexible because then here I am saying I won't draft Tyreek. If he drops far enough, I will. So
all right. So that leads into one of my last couple of questions here. This also comes from Lennon. He says, similar to what you just said about Tyreek, but the opposite. Who's the player you'll defend drafting no matter what, even if it tanks your season? Who is your deadly spice?
It changes so much, but I'm on this kick where I kind of just want to see it hit again because in 2023, it was Sam Laporta. Last year, it was Brock Bowers. So this year, I'm in on those rookie tight ends again, just because if I can get 3 for 3 with a Tyler Warren or a Colston Loveland, it's just it feels too good. It's the adrenaline of hitting on those last two was so nice, league winning rookie tight ends. So that's probably what it is. Just a late round tight end. Yeah.
Right. Tyler Warren. I that's a good answer right there. Chris, what are the questions you have for Cooterdoodle? Before we let her get on, she's got articles to write. She's got things to study. She's got leagues to win. What else you got for her?
How many leagues are too many leagues, do you think?
Good question.
Oh, God, did my husband send you? So I don't count best ball. That doesn't count in the totals. You don't count those. I have found my sweet spot has to be nearing single digits. Otherwise, the waivers start to really stress me out, and I miss out on some really juicy stuff. But Company Woman, FantasyLife. If you subscribe to their on FantasyLife.com, they have this thing now that's called cruise control. So you can see all of your leagues syncing up, and that way you don't miss stuff as much. So I'm going to try that out this year, and it might let me join a few more,
I like that the answer is, I think single digit leagues is probably the right amount. That's insane. I think the most I ever did was 6. And I was like, and now I'm rooting against my own team from one league to the next.
Right. You're like,
you have to make a decision.
I'm not even going to make any decisions. Are you going to get, Sam, going to get it into like best names, the funniest names?
Yeah, let's get into that. And then, but one last strategic question, and then we'll get into all the fun stuff here. What's the biggest mistake fantasy owners make? I have an opinion on this, but I'd love to hear yours. You're the expert. What is the biggest number one mistake that fantasy owners make on draft day?
Oh, on draft day, draft-wise? Well, I would say draft-wise, like I said, not being flexible, like going in with, I'm going to go 0 running back, and then you miss out on something. Season long, I would say, from what I see, at least in the leagues I'm in, is like not taking risks with trades, thinking someone's always out to get you. I don't really see it that way. Like I see so many people get so paranoid, and if you truly look at each other's rosters, a lot of times you can make some good stuff happen that benefits both. And I feel like a lot of people they have this shield up and they think that the person's out to get them if they send the offer first.
Yeah. I think there's two, though. I think we're a little bit too loyal to the soil. We end up making our own players. You being a Saints fan, you might have your Saints players a little higher than everybody else. But part of that is also we study our own teams more than everybody else. So we seem to know more, at least we think we do. So that's part of it. Number 2 is exactly what you talked about. I think trades are what make it fun. I trade with every single person just about every single week in my league. I don't have the same roster from one to the last. It's very rare that I have the same people at the beginning of the season versus the end. And if I do, it's probably because I traded back for them. But I think people get a little bit too attached to the people that they drafted, like they're on an actual team somewhere, as opposed to let's shake this up and see what we have. I'll give you an example. And this is probably mine. I got a guy actually in my phone. I have him as no trade because he just sends the worst trades of all time. But he sent this to me the other day. He wants Devon Achane and draft dollars. So we can actually trade future draft dollars in our league for T. Higgins and Rashee Rice. And I'm saying no. Am I wrong to say no to this, or is this a good trade for me?
I actually really like Higgins this year, but you get dicey sometimes whenever you're a Dolphins fan. Keep him.
There it is. So,
but I do like Higgins though.
You're lucky I'm not in this league, dude. That's some bullshit right there. Using your platform to get your own personal fantasy advice. How dare you?
Whatever.
Sir.
We are in the same league. You could be doing the same exact thing, Chris. It's not my fault you're not taking advantage of the expert that we have here in Cooterdoodle. All right, let's get into some of the funniest league names here, and then we'll let you go because I know, again, very busy person. We're not. We're sitting here all day just talking Dolphins ball. But you had an article up, 165 best fantasy football names. I already mentioned one of them there. I like Josh Jacobs, Jingleheimer Schmidt. I think that might be one of my favorite ones that I've seen in a very, very long time. Turd Ferguson, because Jake Ferguson, I get it. What's your favorite, maybe all-time fantasy football name?
Just because of nostalgia, I loved Badonka Gronk back in the day. That was a good one. But for me, it depends. Like, do you have people still in your leagues that are like Team 11 or Team 7? You know what I mean? They don't change the name. That bothers me so much. Like, own this a little bit. Change your profile picture. Do so, you know what I mean? Get in there. Yeah. But I like a good one that has some backstory to it, whether it's a play on a player that you have. But my favorite, like my bread and butter, is when you can just poke a jab at somebody in your league, something stupid they did or whatever, and it's just an inside joke, but you can really get them with the team name.
I do that a lot. I'm not a big basketball fan, and most of the people in my league are Golden State Warrior fans. So based on who I'm up against, I'll change my name. I trade my players. I change my name just about every single week, and it's usually something like Draymond Green touches other men's dicks or something. Things that he's done on the court just to piss off the other guy. It doesn't really help me in fantasy because I don't really win very often, but still, nonetheless, I appreciate that. Chris, what about you? What are some of your favorites? You're pretty creative with this stuff.
Yeah. So let me get your opinion on this one. Do you watch Stranger Things at all?
Yeah.
Okay. So this was mine last year, and I think it's pretty freaking cool. So I'm going to give this to you. Mine was Waddle Up That Hill.
Yeah. That's right? But that's the thing. You pick a show you like, and you just roll with it.
And it just happened to be 2 guys on my team. Like, it worked out so perfect. And then I photoshopped Waddle's head on Max floating in the air. That was my picture. I thought that was awesome. But actually, cool story time. I actually won a Monday Night Football T-shirt from Chris Mortensen, rest in peace. Back when Chad Henne was on the Dolphins, I sent in Henne Given Sunday, and I was top 5 and won a T-shirt at SportsCenter. So that was pretty cool.
Shout out.
There you go.
Insane in the A-Chain was a pretty good one. I saw someone had.
Well, you had one, A Chain Letters, which I thought was pretty good. Sending a chain letters on your article there. I like Don't Kirk Me When I'm Down. You had it for Cameron, or not Cameron Kirk. Who was that for? Kirk Cameron
Was it
from
Kirk
Growing
Cousins
Pains?
maybe, or was it?
No, it should be Kirk Cousins, but it was somebody else. It was the wide receiver. I can't remember. Christian Kirk. Yeah. That's a good one there. But anyway, I appreciate you being on the show here. We said we talked to you for 10. It's been 25 because, we're liars.
Having a good time,
Having a good time. So, all right. Well, last question from me. When is your first draft? When do you have one of your 9 leagues?
Oh, Sam, you're acting like they haven't already started. I've already drafted a couple, but my home league is going to be in 2 weeks.
Okay, so let me ask you this. You mentioned your husband a couple times. I feel like there's a little bit of frustration. He's like, well, you are in another league. You're on another podcast. You're talking more fantasy football. Does your husband like fantasy football? Does he play? Or is he just like, this is your thing and I'm out of it?
Quick story time. Back in the day, this was probably 15, 20 years ago. I remember he was watching a game, and I think it was the Bengals. And I'm like, why are you watching that? That's not the Saints. Like, I couldn't comprehend why you would watch any team other than the Saints. And then he started fantasy. I would kind of watch over his shoulder. I was like, I want to do that. And then as soon as that first team hit into my veins, I was watching all the games and locked in. So yeah, it's full tilt. It's changed now where he's like, you can take a break. Like, you don't have to always, no, I can't.
No. Frankenstein's, he created a monster.
Yes.
The monster that is Cooterdoodle.
All right.
For
me, because I always think about this. What is your preferred draft position? Top of the draft, middle, or at the end?
Good question.
Let's just say it's a snake draft.
Yeah, I always like to think that I like the beginning and end to get those 2 picks, but every time I'm actually at those positions, I hate it. So I'd probably say middle, like that 106-ish. But there's such a fall off, maybe like the 105, 104 this year.
Yeah. All right. This is an existential question because I feel like it actually applies to podcasting as well, but is fantasy football cool anymore? Is it like,
I stay up late at night, Sam, thinking about this because I feel like people they got the bug and they got bit and they join these leagues. And I've seen so many dynasty leagues just fizzle and implode after a year or two. It's all about your friends and the camaraderie and the trash talking. The winning is great, but if you don't have those pieces, it isn't cool anymore. So if you feel like you're losing it, guys, just find the right 11 people. You don't have the right people, You
big fan of the league?
Yes, the league. Oh yeah.
Yeah. That just reminded me of that. You saying like talk trash and
that's what it's about for me.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, you made this fun, Cooterdoodle. We appreciate it. Tell everybody where they can find you. Send out your socials. You got new articles coming out. It sounds like even tomorrow.
Yep. Yeah. Check out FantasyLife.com, and you can find me over on X at Cooterdoodle.
Cooter. I saw something on your social the other day. It's the only promo code with Cooter in it. And
I should probably say that. So you can type in Cooter on FantasyLife.com and get a 20% off of the sub. And I think it's the only website that has that as a promo code. But I didn't dive deep.
That might be the first time. That might be the first time Cooter saves you money.
You know what's funny? I looked you up on Google. And I went into AI mode because it'll actually write about you, right, based on everything that's pulling. So this is pretty good. It says Cooterdoodle is not a widely recognized word or term with a standard definition. However, based on online search results, it appears to be primarily used as a social media handle and an online persona for a fantasy football writer and content creator. The user behind Cooterdoodle handle is associated with Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life. It is known for their social media presence, particularly on platforms like X and YouTube. In some contexts, Cooter can refer to the type of freshwater turtle or be used as slang term for the vulva, especially in the southern U.S. However, the doodle part does not seem to have a readily apparent meaning in this context. So there's your.
I wanted a gamer tag back in the day that didn't have numbers, and I like the cookie snickerdoodles. And then I was watching Sarah Marshall, and she says Cooter. I'm like, there we go. And I tried it, and there was no numbers needed, and it worked out. It
does work out because if you were Doodle Cooter,
it'd be a whole different.
Do you think it's different? I think it's kind of like I get the same imagery. Like I think
you're a weird artist at that point.
Well, like Christopher Cullen or Cullen Christopher, it could be a name either way. Sam Marcoux Sam. It's not. You're just reading off of a phone book at that point. But I like that. I feel like Doodle Cooter and Cooter Doodle interchangeable.
Perhaps.
All right. Well, who is not interchangeable is the very one and only Cooterdoodle. Thank you for joining us here on the Town of Perfectville. Thank you for the advice. Thank you for letting us know we need to avoid Tyreek Hill at all costs. That's right, everyone here in both of my leagues. Don't draft him. It's bad news. All right. Thank you, Cooter.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
All right. And we're back. Special thanks to Cooterdoodle. And of course, you can check her out. She is the author of all things fantasy on FantasyLife.com. That's Matthew Berry's site. Chris, I learned a lot today. I learned a lot about Zach Sieler. I learned a lot about what FanDuel is thinking about the Miami Dolphins here in 2025. I learned a lot about fantasy football names and what we should and should not do and who we should and should not draft. Thanks to Cooterdoodle. How about you? I feel like this was a really, really fun, educational, good episode of Perfectville.
It's a great episode because one reason and one reason only, Cooterdoodle said I was right against my dad. So dock points on kickers, dock points on quarterbacks. You throw a pick, you miss a kick. That's your job. And if you don't do it well, you get docked points. Suck it.
Well, for my new follower on X, Mr. Lloyd Cullen, I just would like to say that the disrespect from your children, sir, is not going unnoticed by the elder statesman here in Perfectville. The town of Perfectville old man here. I'm going to agree with the old man, Mr. Lloyd Cullen, if he's listening to this, and I'm sure he is. You're right. Christopher Cullen is wrong. Brett Cullen is wrong. All the other Cullens, incorrect. That's what I think.
Blow his fucking head up. I can't wait to hear about this.
His head's going to be as big as mine is in the screen by the end of this. So, all right. Well, I think that's it for today. I'm looking forward to watching some preseason football here over the weekend. The Miami Dolphins, Chicago Bears. Again, according to FanDuel, the Miami Dolphins are the underdogs plus 2.5 going into Chicago on a Sunday afternoon. I'm looking forward to seeing Quinn Ewers. I'm looking forward to seeing Zach Wilson. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody who will play for the Miami Dolphins on Sunday do what they do best, hopefully. And of course, I'm looking forward to more Mike McDaniel press conferences, Chris. I don't know if you saw what he said today, but somebody said, is it a good day? And he goes, it's a great day. And they asked him why. And he said, because it's one day closer to death.
Jesus. I did not see that.
I was like, is McDaniel okay? Like, is everything okay at home?
Check over there.
Yeah, I mean, I will say he was wearing all black sweats, hoodies. No surprise there when I was there, and he was just walking around. He looked like he was pissed off the whole time. He looked more like a head coach than I've ever seen him look like. So again, we talked about whether it's internet muscles or not for Mike McDaniel in the flesh. He was certainly playing the part, Chris.
Good. That's what I asked you to look for, is a body language reaction from players and coaches and things like that. So good to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, everybody there, on behalf of the entire BLEAV network, the two-time Hall of Famer, and of course, our good friends and overlords over at FanDuel, this is Perfectville. Well, just a reminder, no one is perfect except us. And with that, the only thing left to say is goodbye from Perfectville.
Later.